Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.34, and today we're going to be discussing the topic increase build speed through motor expectation, a visual and kinesthetic approach to learning no-code development. Today, we're going to be featuring the secret sauce behind the new Gabbles certification courses. My name is Brittany Hernandez, and I am a lawyer, a professional no-code, low-code developer, a legal tech educator, and the global ambassador to law schools for Gabble, formerly Documate. So, like I said, we're going to be discussing how to increase how fast you can build something through this process of motor expectation and a visual and kinesthetic approach to learning and adopting these no-code strategies. So I'm going to be going behind the scenes of this secret sauce of how I built the new Gabble certification courses that I have created co-created with Megan Sawtell, who's a fellow Gabble expert. So with this approach, it's an understanding that there are different styles of learning and that we can learn better by engaging all of these different styles in one program or course, for example. So the different types of learning styles include things like visual learning, auditory learning, reading and writing, as well as kinesthetic, where when we're talking about kinesthetic, we mean that you're a learner where you understand information best through the use of tactile representation. So this is hands-on learning, and you're somebody who wants to be in the midst of it all. You prefer creating a personal experience around learning something in particular and processing that information by recreating or practicing a skill. Reading and writing, this is a strength in processing information through the use of reading and writing. So this is also helpful for people who are auditory learners, where they understand best by taking information through listening or active speaking in situations such as lectures. For visual learners, this is preferring the use of images, maps, and graphics in order to understand and process information as effectively as possible. In my particular case, I'm more of a visual and kinesthetic learner, and you can see that bias has really come into play in my version of the courses, and that perhaps my co-creator Megan in the first iteration of the courses was a little bit more on the reading and writing side. So it's interesting to see how our own personal biases can come into play, but at the same time, as the founder of Cramam Academy, and understanding that I'm not in the place of the students and that I need to be mindful of how different students engage with content, I've tried to make the courses as, let's say, inclusive as possible with all of these different styles of learning. So one of the ways that we do this is I'm going to go through the basics course first, which really touches on this kind of more referential and visual learning aspects. And then we'll go into the silver course and how that was built, which is more of a kinesthetic or practical real world build, as well as real time. So we're going to touch on each of these in turn. So firstly, let's go over how I created the new version of the Gabble Basics course and what we actually create and why. So inside of the Gabble Basics course, I go over a roadmap of what we're going to learn so that we can have an expectation for what is to come. And then I talk about just kind of logistics and how to set up the cohort and how to get into the community and how to start your free trial and so on. However, the next step here in the next section goes into how to understand Gabble's 4 distinct views. So one of the main reasons why I've set this up this way is for the basics course, in order for you to build quickly, you need to be able to know what tools are available to you and have that visual expectation and motor expectation, as I mentioned. And the way that we facilitate this within the basics course is by having you touch every single button that you can see and actually engaging with each feature within Gabble. So I'll show you what we end up building in this particular course and how that's particularly relevant. So in Gabble, as the course goes over, there are different views. So you have, for example, the playground dashboard view when you're an admin or a builder. You have the bundles feature, which is right now in testing mode. So not everyone has this available to them, but even though that's available from the dashboard, I separated it out because it has a very different layout and interactive elements than the rest of the program or the platform. The Gabble editor itself. So once you go from the dashboard, you go into the editor where you actually create and build workflows out. Then you have the live application view or the end user view, and how that's interacted with is very different, and who's interacting with it is very different from the editor. And then you also have the client portal, which is a completely different experience because it has different functionality and different features, and it's specifically for the person who would want to look back at their sessions, which would typically be the end user or client. So we go through and just visually look at in these different sections and click on each button for what's in each of these sections. So for example, if I go into my own Gabble dashboard, I can show you what I mean. So to kind of go over all of these different sections in the course, I go over the visual representation as well as the explanation verbally what each of these things do. So we click on it, I explain it, and we talk about how it's used in each scenario. So we start and we go through the dashboard first, and I say that what each of these functions do. We click everything open, we look at every single piece, we click on every button, we go over what each of these buttons looks like when you click on it, what it does, how it functions. We go into the editor view, which is the second view outside of the bundles side. We go into why you might want to go into this particular view and what it does and how it can be differentiated between the dashboard and the editor. Then the live run view would be what the end user interacts with, whether that is somebody who's internal in the team or if it's somebody who's an end user or client, for example. It depends. That would change how you word these questions and so on. But the point is, from a teaching perspective and how you can adopt no-code, low-code development strategies through this type of visual and kinesthetic method really has to do with your ability to look at and touch every feature from the beginning, so that when you start to develop things in the future, you already have in mind a visual representation of what it is what is available to you to use in your build strategy. And you can make connections that you wouldn't otherwise be able to make if you didn't know what was available to you as an option. So that's kind of the whole basis of the Chromium Academy courses, is this idea that we want you to physically click on every button and visually see everything that is the result on the end user side and what that looks like when you run through an entire workflow, so that you can have that in your motor function and in your kind of motor memory in order to build faster with Gabble and Softer and other tools. Specifically, the Gabble certification courses are focused on Gabble as a platform, but you can apply this same concept or strategy for how to learn and pick up no-code, low-code development strategies in any tool that you use. So in this particular case, like I said, I focused in the basic course on having you touch every button that you can see, both within the platform itself as well as in the different views, but also in the Word add-in, and then how to create PDFs and how to utilize the PDF unlocker and the PDF tagger and so on. So that is kind of the elements of the basics course. And I'll show you what we built, which is this kind of all questions master reference template. And that goes to that kind of both visual and kinesthetic approach to learning how to do this. So we also are referential in nature, meaning I have you build out a master reference template. That way you can actually, and I do this all the time, and that's why you see so many different test ones here, is that I go back and I actually look at how I did a very specific thing or multiple different things in a previous workflow. So I make it to where in our basics course, we go through and we build out together this master reference template, where when we go behind the scenes, we are touching every button and every question type that is available to you here. And then we also use page logic, and we use question logic, and we use invisible logic. So you see that we're able to utilize each of these, as well as CSV files, for example. And then I also go through questions tab, the Output Documents tab, and we touch these buttons in here where we have a PDF and a doc or docx so that you can see both of those files. We do a little bit of conditional statements, so we can utilize that function here. And then also this email function as well. Then I go into settings and I go through each of these different settings and permissions and how you're able to update these to customize your messages, as well as your email automation templates, as well as your emailing session to continue later. I just show you how to go through each of these different pieces, as well as how to set up a hook or a webhook, as well as how you can update the different access permissions. So we literally just go through and touch everything. I also, like I said, go into the Word add-in where you can play with every single button, try out different features, and that way, in the future, when you're trying to build something, you're able to visually see it in your head, and thus you're able to build faster. So this is the document tagger, as I mentioned. So we're going to go into here for a second and just show you what the master variable list looks like. I also teach you how to utilize all of these different pieces, simple variables, even such as inserting all of the questions in variables like this. So you can see all of the questions we created, all of the variables that we created as well. You also learn how to utilize different things such as showing and hiding certain pages depending on certain answers to certain questions, such as show phrase one and show paragraph one, numerical calculations, date calculations, repeating items, how to check for errors, how to select a document to replace within the Gabble workflow itself from the Word add-in, and just updating that here and more. So this is a really helpful way of developing your expertise within a certain platform, is to just sit down and take a minute when you're first starting out to just get the lay of the land, to just figure out, okay, where is everything at first when you're just basic or new to a platform, and then just playing with each feature to see what happens when I touch this feature, and doing it in an environment that it's okay to make mistakes. That's what I really love about this process. Is it kind of, in the future, I'll do something around this idea of breaking the seal. And that's the idea of just kind of diving into something that is not going to be high risk for you. It just allows you an environment to play and test and try something that you can just see. I just want to know what happens, what breaks when I try it like this, what works when I try it this other way. What does this fit, like, what does this actually look like when it's on the other side or in a different view, such as the end user view, the live run application link view, or what does it look like after this is run by the end user in their client portal? So if you're able to have each of these pieces set up, you'll be able to build faster. So in here, for example, I have you go through, click on every question type, and physically say on the other side of this, or the live run link side of this, this is what a text question looks like. This is what help text looks like. This is a text area question. This is a drop-down question. This is a combo box. This is a single select question. This is a multi-select question. You can see I'm physically saying on each of these and having you write in, this is a date question, so that you can refer back to it, especially when you're brand new to this tool and you haven't used it before. But also making it to where you have elements that are less known or obvious, which is that you're going to be able to refer back to how you were able to insert an image, for example, like this, or how you were able to include elements of HTML, or how you were able to, let's say, for example, have a preview page where you have a document that shows before, like in the middle here of the actual workflow. So somebody can then click on it and take a look before they move on to the rest of their workflow or their questions. You can also refer back to how you were able to insert a video into your document or your workflow, how you were able to have invisible logic not only be created in the background, but how to bring that to the foreground within your workflow through a language called Mako. Also, how you're able to have a signature block within here and how to ask an initial question as well as any continuation questions, how to skip that over and so on. So I'll go back and double check what's going on here. I think it's mostly because I'm just skipping through these questions and not actually answering them. But the point being that I'm having you physically go through and double check on each element of how you can actually build something from start to finish with this more referential approach. So it's not necessarily something that you would actually give to someone, but it allows you to have a testing environment that's safe for you to make mistakes. And I think that that's more valuable in the beginning when you're first starting out and learning, so that you can go through and touch every button that you can see, make the mistakes in this environment so that when you go through and build something real, you've already made the mistakes, you've already figured out the quirks, you've already figured out your own style and kind of played with this enough to get a sense of where things are. So you can physically find where you need to go in order to do something, which also increases your speed. Also, this idea of that visual representation, like I mentioned, is that you're able to go back, not only on the back end, to see what this actually looks like. I'm just going to get out of this one for a second. To physically and visually go through and see what these questions will look like and what happens when you add custom CSS, for example, like in this case where I have a black background instead of the traditional white background. But also that you can visually see each of these pieces down here. And that referential approach is that you can actually go back and see, how did I create this particular image? How did I incorporate a video? How did I incorporate, what was the code that I used in order to make it to where you're able to see a preview of a document, for example, like in this particular case? How was I able to incorporate that YouTube video? And so on. So that's how you're able to, in the basics course, really touch on two key points, which are referential learning, which is that you're able to refer back to your code or how you built something specifically. And then your visual learning by seeing the front end and taking a look at each of these different views, including the end user's client portal view, and what they can see. So testing it from all angles as well. What the silver course really goes into and teaches us is a little bit more on the side of practical real world learning as well as real time learning. So in the silver course, in contrast to the basics course, it really goes into more of the element of being able to show you how you would actually then take your knowledge of how all of these features interact with each other and build something that you would actually launch in the real market. So in this particular case for Gabbles Silver, my approach here has really been that
we're going to
first I show you what we're going to do and go over the knowledge prerequisites, how to join the community, and so on. But we go into this idea of a harmonized ecosystem, because in the real world, Gabble is one piece of software that is used within the context of other pieces of software that also contain information about your clients or your end users or whatever else. So this is a recognition of, we need to know, how do I actually physically give the link to this workflow to someone in the sales process? Where does it live? Where does it go? Where do I show this? Where do I have them access it? So all these different questions are answered in this particular course, which goes over how to build a website quickly using software. So how we're going to go over how I built this one, and we build it together critically here in real time, so that whenever you're going through and sitting through a session with me in the course, you're doing it with me in real time, along with the recording, where you can pause, go back, go forward, go faster, go slower. It depends on what your needs are. But we go through how we're able to together build this particular website, and then also how we utilized a tool called Canva in order to create these bespoke designs in the background that were made just for this particular website. For example, I also give you access to my template so that you can do this a little bit faster or see how I did it and then modify it to suit your own needs. We go through why you would want to have certain elements to balance each other out on a page, for example. Then from here, we're able to understand how we're going to link this information to our customer relationship management software, in this case, which is HubSpot, and how we're able to sync this because of a contact form in this particular case and a consultation booking page here through HubSpot as well. Then we're also going to go through how you would give the person that has booked a consultation with you the link to your actual workflow through an automated email process. So we're also building within this course an initial intake consultation form. So in this particular example, I'm going to show you the one that's already built out here. So in this particular one, we go through how to build out an initial consultation questionnaire where we ask what type of matter do you need help with, and then let's say if they do trademark, they do entertainment or business or copyright, they have the option to choose or to type in their own information. We have a lead source question, which is how did they hear about us, and so on. And it goes through to ask them a few questions about their own information, such as their name and their address, some information about their matter in addition to this section here. So what we talk about trademarks, and we say, what type of trademark help do you need? And then we give them a space where they can talk a little bit more about their matter. And then also let us know if any other parties are involved in this particular case. And then how this information will then feed directly back into a system called Clio. So Clio is typically used by lawyers to manage their cases. So I'll show you how to use Zapier to feed this information from Gabble into Clio, which will auto sync with our HubSpot CRM. So that's how all of these different systems kind of weave into each other in order to make it to where we're actually building out a real product and system, as well as our websites and our automation infrastructure and our customer relationship management and all these different pieces together, as well as building out our customizations and our domains and so on in real time throughout the silver course. So by the end of the course, the outcome being that you have a real website that you could actually use right after the course if you just make a few modifications while you're going through the course. You actually have a real initial consultation questionnaire and a real booking page and a real contact form, and all of these different pieces are seamlessly integrated together. I also give you along the way a little bit of advice about how you might make this look a little bit nicer or more integrated if you have, because this is the kind of like a free version of software, which works fabulously. But also I give you some pointers along the way of how you might be able to enable some custom code so that you can create a slightly different experience, both visually and, from a more practical perspective. So what I mean by that is, in the case of this version of the same type of website, still built with software, I have a different way of having the contact form show up in more of a modal format. And then I also have a consultation booking platform, which in this case is Calendly, integrated like this, instead of having it open up in a separate page, so that everything can stay a little bit more streamlined from a branding perspective. But that's just if you have a slightly higher paid plan, then it makes it to where you're able to use custom code, where you can drop in some embed codes straight into this particular form. But either way, the point is that you're still going to be able, whether you use free or you use paid, integrate this particular system harmoniously throughout together, from beginning to end, from the beginning of your user's journey into the sales funnel to make it to where you get through to your initial consultation, for example. Later, when I am finished revamping the gold course, I'm going to go into showing you how you can create different legal products. So for example, in this particular case here, if you were a law firm, for example, and you had some DIY solutions that you built out with Gabble, let's say you had an entire section on DIY solutions, then I'll go into how you can build this kind of page out where you have almost a storefront here where people can purchase your different workflows or use them for free, for example, and how you can have your actual Gabble workflows embedded within your page here so that the person can interact with it directly within this page, for example. And then they can go through and actually pay for them as well, because you have the native Stripe integration with Gabble as well. So that is how you're able to see this progression from a physical, kinesthetic, and real-time practical approach to building out with no-code tools, is that we go through and actually physically touch in the beginning in basics all of the different pieces of the puzzle, and having that kind of referential templatized version of at the beginning allows us to then know what tools are available to us, which features are available to us in that tool, that will allow us to quickly build in down the road, because we know what's available to us. We're also visually seeing this. So if you're more of a visual learner, and even if you're not, you're able to refer back to that page that you built out to say, okay, I would want this style over that one. When I used this, this is what I was able to see happen. This is what I was able to use as far as default values. This is what I was able to use as far as help text, and so on and so on. So you already know from the beginning, just after basics, how each of these different pieces function, as well as in the Word add-in, as well as in the PDF unlocker, and so on. From the Silver side, as I mentioned, the kind of secret sauce here is really about building together practical, real-world pieces of our system that integrate together, and also doing this in real time. So these are some different pieces of the puzzle that make it to where our students are able to actually walk away with a fully built out system that allows them to take that and launch it in real time after they're done. Obviously, with some slightly different modifications for their own practice types or their own area of expertise, and information and logos and so on. But they have the structure, they have built it out, and they've already put in the time. So by the time they're done, they already have everything built out. So that's the idea here, is seeing how all of these different pieces come together to build out real-time, real-world products. So let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to show you here. Also, I go into in the Silver course how to do CSS customizations. So specifically in Silver, it's how you can use boot swatch templates with AWS, and how to do that with Gabble specifically. And then I also go into, what I'll go into in the Gold course is how you can actually do some custom CSS, like you saw in the more fully built out example that I showed you with the DIY solutions. So in that one, I'm going to go over how you would actually more take the kind of more custom CSS route and make it to where, let's say, let me actually just show you really quick again. You can show this one more time before we kind of start to wrap up, which is the ability to go to that DIY solutions page, and instead of your, let's say your workflow looking like this, where you have a, like background with more blue and black and gray, and then let me just see if I can find one more where it's a little bit more. Yeah, so this would be like more very default CSS of Gabble, for example, where it's a particular type of font, and there you have particular colors, and you have this kind of header here at the top with the ability for somebody to go to their dashboard or go to their accounts and so on. Instead, you'd be able to take off the header and customize your font, as well as the styling of the colors here, for example, even around the border colors of these sections here, which I didn't do in this particular case, but also like the button styles and the colors and all these different pieces to make sure it's completely branded with your particular colors and styles of your brand. So with this approach, like I mentioned, we're going to be able to see each of these different pieces in real time. We're able to touch every button. We're able to also, in the Silver course, we're going to go over how to see everything that's available to you once you use a Clio variable within your workflow. So we build out this template where, let me just see if I have it here and quickly available, which is, let me see. I'll just double check if I can show you. Yeah, here. So I'm going to show you how you can take all of the different variables and what it would look like. So I kind of pulled out all the different variables that are available to you if you use the Clio integration. So when you say insert all variables, for example, what that looks like when you have actual information within there. So this is what it looks like. So you can then plan because you already know what the end result would look like. For example, when it says full name of a client, does that mean their middle name as well? Does it mean just their first name and their last name? Does it mean whatever else? So name here would be their first name, their middle name, and their last name. And then this would be broken down. And does their initials also include the middle name or not? You can see initials has just the first initial and the last name initial. So you can just see, okay, so I know for a fact that when I use this, it's going to come out this way. And then you would also be able to see any of your custom fields and so on as well. So that's how we approach this particular way of teaching, which focuses on, for example, as well, how to do some tricky stuff, which is how in this particular case, for example, instead of just having a very plain white background for this letter to our client to welcome them to our firm, and that, we're just giving them some disclaimers about just by submitting the form, that doesn't automatically create an attorney-client relationship, but we're excited to talk to you, and here's a summary of your information. So I go over how I was able to customize and stylize this particular document while at the same time having this information be fed in from your Gabble workflows. So that's how I'm able to have a reference point for each of our students to show them, okay, so now you have a document that shows you how to do some basic stuff, but also some fancy, tricky stuff that makes it to where you're able to really brand your experience for your end clients all the way from the beginning, all the way through to the end of their experience with you, or to have a continued relationship with you into the future. So that is the emphasis within Silver, which is available now. Basics is also available now as well. Gold is still in production, as far as we have a gold course that's available now, but the one that's going to focus specifically more on creating legal products, like the ones I showed you when I showed you the more built out version of that website, that's going to be coming very soon. So I wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter than usual. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer any questions. I'm just going to go over a few announcements before we wrap up, which are that this has been an episode of the Wednesday Build, which has new episodes live every Wednesday. I also come out with a new issue of Code Word Hex every Tuesday, as well as a new issue or version of the Tuesday forecast every Wednesday for free. So feel free to sign up for each of those by going to cormamacademy.com, where we also have Gabble certification courses, as well as courses in Software and Airtable, a certification course in Go Full Page, with more courses to come. You are welcome to join our community by joining any of these different free or paid versions of courses with our CorMam community, which has a lot of different professionals from different industries who've come together to learn from each other and grow. So we also have an active Slack group for the Gabble community. So feel free to join us there. You can find that by going to gabble.io. So thank you so much for those of you that are with me live, and for those of you that are on the recording, hello. The next time we're going to meet is on Wednesday, August 30th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we're going to be discussing the topic, why no-code devs are the Michael Phelps of tech: structure, teammates, solo lanes, and more. This is going to be a really fun one, so I'm hopeful to see you there. And you can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or via email at brittany@cormam.pro. And any inquiries that you'd like to talk to me about for Gabble's Law School program, you can just email me at brittany@gabble.io. So that is all for this video, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.